Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be my first ever book talk, and we're going to be talking about An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I recently read this book for the Owl's Magical Readathon that was hosted by Bookish, and I absolutely fell in love with the book. I know I'm very behind. I think the third book in the series comes out in December. So I have some catching up to do, but it was the first and looking like to be one of the only 5-star reads I had in the month of April, besides Harry Potter of course. But I thought I would just kind of talk to you guys about my thoughts and opinions on the book and kind of elaborate on my rating and why I gave it 5 stars. So in this video you're going to kind of see also how I go about rating my books. I know a lot of people, since I've mentioned Book Roast, use her call pile scale. I really enjoy that, but some of the aspects I just don't really pay attention to in books, so I really went for the main things that stick out to me personally. But yeah, I'm gonna save the how I rate for the end of the video, and for right now we'll get into my thoughts and opinions on the book. So I have some notes on the book, but quickly I kind of just wanted to go over what the book is about. So I'm gonna read the back for you guys. And it says, Laia is a slave, Elias is a soldier, neither is free. Under the Martial Empire, Defiance is met with death. Laia and her family do not challenge the Empire. They've seen what happens to those who do. But when Laia's brother is arrested for treason, she's forced to make a decision. In exchange for help from rebels who promise to rescue her brother, she'll risk her life to spy for them from within the Empire's greatest military academy. There, Laia meets Elias, the school's finest soldier, and secretly its most unwilling. He and Laia will soon realize that their destinies are intertwined and that their choices will change the fate of the Empire itself. So that definitely intrigued me in the book and was something that got me to pick it up and get it in the first place. I'll kind of elaborate a little bit more on that synopsis and kind of talk about it. So the book opens up with Laia, who is living with her grandmother, grandfather, and her brother. Her parents and her sister were all part of the resistance, and they were some of its leaders and were subsequently killed for that. She has kind of been raised very much in fear of the Martial Empire, not wanting to upset them or be associated with the resistance. And they are from the scholar caste, which in this society they're very oppressed, very much looked down upon. So Laia is definitely suffering from the trauma of her parents being killed, and now she is witnessing her grandparents being killed and her brother being arrested for treason. So she's definitely going through a lot, and her brother Darren tells her, you know, get out of here, run. So she escapes and ends up in these tunnels under the Scholar Quarter, and that is where she meets the resistance and their current leaders. And they kind of come to an agreement that if Laia spies on the Empire under the guise of a slave, they will do their best to help break Darren out of prison. So she goes into Blackcliff Military Academy, which is where they train all of these martial soldiers that are known as masks, and she becomes the commandant, who is like the head of the military academy's slave. So there she meets a few other slaves, one named Izzy, who is referred to as Kitchen Girl. They're kind of stripped of their born names to make them feel lesser, and then the cook. So they are pretty much the main people that Laia interacts with while she is working for the commandant. Now, at the same time, but on the opposite side, we have Elias, and he is a senior mask kind of at Blackcliff Military Academy, and he is just about to graduate, and he is planning to leave after graduation. He does not agree with the ways of the masks. He thinks they're vicious and violent and inhumane and doesn't stand for anything that they do. So he is planning to desert, and that is a really big commitment. You are basically going to spend the rest of your life on the run and will be hunted down by these masks. So he is really willing to give up everything because that is how strongly he is opposed to their beliefs. And kind of the connecting link we have here is Elias is the commandant's son, and she really hates Elias, doesn't want anything to do with her son. And I feel like that pretty much sets up the base of our story. A few aspects to kind of gloss over. The point of views is alternating. We get some of Laya's perspective and Elias's perspective, which I both appreciate. And in this world there are fae. We have efforts, ghouls, wraths, jinn, and augurs, who are kind of these immortal guards. I'd consider them fae as well. So it's a different type of fae from the, you know, typical young adult high fae, demi-fae, shapeshifters that we see in a lot of young adult fantasy, which I really enjoyed. Throughout the book, we obviously have a budding romance between Laya and Elias, but they also have side interests. So Elias is dealing with some, you know, unrequited love and romance from his best friend Helene, and they have feelings for each other. And Laya develops feelings for one of the faction leaders within the Resistance. His name is Keenan. So they're both dealing with feelings for other people, but also feelings for each other. So that kind of sets up the first section of the book, and then the middle and main section of the book, we are going through these 4 trials, and these augur guards basically appoint 4 aspirants, and they're all going to compete in these challenges to become the next emperor of the Martial Empire. And so the 4 aspirants are Elias, Helene, and a set of twins, and their names are Marcus and Zach. So whoever wins the most trials will be crowned emperor, and whoever comes in second will be crowned Bloodshrike, who is kind of pledging their allegiance to the emperor and has to do their bidding. So that is the main section of the book, and in the end we find out who is crowned emperor, Bloodshrike, and who are set to be executed, because whoever the remaining 2 who do not win are set to be executed. So the first trial, all the aspirants are faced with their fears. The second trial, they have to face some of the fae and last all night despite their, you know, attempts to kill them. The third, all of the aspirants are kind of pitted against each other, and each person is given an army to go into battle, and the battle is only ended when the leader of the enemy team is killed. So it's supposed to pretty much narrow us down to 2 people. And the final challenge is a test of loyalty, which I will get to in a second. I'm kind of going to focus on the third trial for a little bit because I feel like a lot happens in it, and I definitely got very emotional during this part. So during this third trial, Helene and Elias's team are put against each other, and Marcus and Zach's teams are put against each other. And Elias attempts to kill Helene, and she unknowingly cheated, so she was disqualified, but Marcus and Zach, who were twin brothers, were pitted against each other, and Marcus ended up killing his brother. So that is definitely an emotional scene. And at some point throughout the battle, Elias comes across another character, Demetrius, and at the very beginning of the book we find out that Demetrius's younger brother was beaten to death. And that just really shows the cruelty of this military academy, and how if you do not follow your rules and do not show strength and viciousness, you will be killed. And Demetrius, in his final moments before Elias killed him, was almost accepting of it, and it just absolutely gutted me to see how, you know, they talk about in the book, he was ready to go, he wanted to be with his brother, and I was sobbing at this point. One of my favorite quotes throughout the book was, "There are 2 types of guilt, the kind that drowns you and the kind that fires you up inside and gives you purpose." I loved that. I felt like that was probably one of the best lines that stood out to me in the entire book. A few other heartwarming tidbits that I kind of wanted to go over is when Laya and Elias are dancing at the Moon Festival. Elias knows who Laya is, but Elias is in disguise, so Laya really doesn't recognize him. They're dancing, and they talk about their pasts, and Laya tells Elias, you know, she's just a girl living in the Scholar Quarter with her grandmother, grandfather, and brother, and how she worked with her grandfather. And Elias tells Laya that he is a tribal man, who is partially true. He grew up and was raised by them until he was 6. And he's able to speak the language and talk to her about, you know, his mother who raised him. And it's just such an endearing moment in the book because neither of them are really lying to each other about their pasts. They're just telling them how it was before they were kind of sucked into the world of the military academy. Another aspect was at the very end of the book when Elias is set to be executed. He is escaping with Laya, and two of his friends, Ferris and Dex, both see him escaping, and they know what's going on fully well, and they kind of just turn around, give him a smile, and give him a head start. It's their kind of, I guess, last piece of saying goodbye and, you know, you're our friend. And in my eyes, it really shows that there are other kids at this academy who don't agree with the ways that they go about doing things. And also how Elias's grandfather was so avid in trying to get his execution canceled, and he was put into hiding because of what he tried to do for his grandson. So I think that was pretty much it. Definitely what I'm looking forward to in the next book is a little bit more of Helene. Since she was crowned Bloodstrike, I want to see how that changes her, how she's affected by it. So now that we've kind of gone over the summary of the book and my thoughts and opinions, we're going to get into how I rate. So when I am rating books, I look at 5 different aspects to kind of evaluate the book upon, and that is characters, the plot, if there are any holes, clarity, if it's relative to the synopsis. The third is intrigue and my investment within the book. Fourth is the atmosphere, and fifth is my overall enjoyment and reading experience. So we're going to start off with characters. What I mean by this is if I enjoyed the main characters, this would be where if I had any issues with them or anything that they said throughout the book, or if I felt more intrigued by the side characters than the main characters, I would definitely dock points for that in this part. But I absolutely adored Elias and Laya. I really liked their stories. I felt like all the side characters served purpose, and if they didn't, we never really spent time with them. For plot and the overall clarity, and if it was relative to the synopsis, I felt like with the magic system, they answered all my questions. There weren't really any gaps within the explanations. The only thing I did have to say about it was, the only thing I kind of had to say about it is if you are getting the book based on the synopsis on the back, I would definitely say that I anticipated at least more time spent with Darren, and that was not what this book focused on. Since there are a few other books in the series, I do anticipate we'll get a little bit more of Darren. You kind of get his backstory and learn a little bit more about him and how he was helping the resistance, but we don't see so much of him. Next is the intrigue and investment. I was definitely intrigued by the book, that's why I picked it up, but my investment, I feel like I finished it in about 4 days, and I was thinking about it constantly from the moment I stopped reading it. I wanted to pick it back up again, and if you guys watch back on my reading vlogs, the very first day that I started reading, I think I got 30 pages in, and I was mentioning how I thought it was going to be a 5-star book. I just had that kind of feeling about it. The fourth is atmosphere, and I loved this writing style. It was descriptive enough. It wasn't too flowery or metaphorical, and I felt like the scenes where Sabaa Tahir really wanted you to be there and feel like you were in the story. She did an amazing job at it. One of the most impactful scenes that I really saw fill out with this was the Moon Festival, and it was just set up beautifully. I felt like I was there. I felt like I could hear the music and see them dancing, and it was very atmospheric, and I loved that aspect of it. And finally is my enjoyment and overall reading experience. So this would be where if I was listening to it on audiobook and I wasn't really into it, or if I had a really hard time getting through it, if like the beginning was slow or there was a part where I really wasn't interested, that's where I would kind of mention on this. For example, Six of Crows, I absolutely loved the book. It was a 5-star read, but the first 60 to 100 pages were really difficult for me to get into, so that is something that I would mention at this point. But like I said, this book did not have that. I really liked the pacing of it. I felt like there was never a time when we were spending too much on something that didn't matter, which I feel like it's my type of book, the writing style, everything. So sorry if I was looking down a lot. I have my notes on my bullet journal on how I rate so that I can remember if I ever need to show somebody. And besides that, I think that's all I had to mention. So I hope you guys enjoyed my first ever book talk on An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Hopefully I will do more of these with other books that I read and maybe rate 5 stars and enjoy, or just have a lot of opinions on. So I think that is all I wanted to say. I hope you guys are having a good day, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys!